to Spanx. To all other plans, just say no thanks. Come snuggle up, grab a blankie, and then you'll be all ready for a girls' night in. Girls' night in.
Hey, baby.
Hey.
Girl, okay, this has got to be our number one requested, would you say?
Oh, yeah. Immediately, everyone was like, you need to do
Gilmore Girls. It's so true.
So good.
Luann, tell me what you remember as being the dawn of when you were aware of the show.
Actually, I know exactly the first time that I heard about this show.
Okay.
It was when we were with Miss Melanie and Tori Rogers. Shout out.
Hello.
We were touring Virginia Tech campus
Oh my
with
gosh.
Tori. And we were looking at the dorms and she said, well, it's not like Gilmore Girls. And I was like, what's Gilmore Girls? And so then that was when my awareness of Gilmore Girls came about.
Yes. I mean, I remember Miss Melanie saying, you got to watch this with Elena because you guys would really love it. It's y'all.
Yeah.
And I will say we've been blessed in the fact that a number of people have said throughout the years, you guys remind me of Lorelai and Rory.
It's a huge compliment.
It is when you watch it the first time through. I'm not
Yeah.
going to lie. I'm not sure that it's a compliment. The more you watch it.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
We're going to get into that. I will say before you decide, I know everything there is to know about the Gilmore Girls, good. Because we've turned this into a trivia challenge for Elena today.
Right. And I'll get her on the next round. So first let's talk about how we're gonna do this series. Because clearly Gilmore Girls, there's so much to it. Way too much to unpack in one episode. So our plan is to kind of go like season by season and kind of break it up. We'll have episodes in between so it's not all Gilmore Girls for 5 weeks or whatever it might be. So we're going to do this first season, and then from there on out, we'll do 2 seasons an episode.
Per episode.
Probably throughout until like Christmas time or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe later. We'll see.
We'll see. We're just going to take it as it comes. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning, Elena.
Okay.
I did a tiered level of trivia. In other words, they're not all easy because some people out there are absolutely fanatics.
Yeah.
Huge fanatics. And so which we totally appreciate. So some of the questions are easy, fair game, and some of them are a little bit more in depth, but we thought that would be a fun way to go through the 21 episodes that there are in the first season.
Perfect.
So before we kick it off, is there anything in general that you want to say?
So, I mean, we will get throughout all the seasons. We know that our girls change and go through a lot of different things throughout the series, and that can kind of change how we feel about the characters, how we feel about the writing, the situations. We have I don't want to say we have a love-hate relationship with the show. At the end of the day, it always ends with love.
It's love.
But the more we've watched it, the more we're like, was that toxic? Was that a little toxic? And so just kind of the more you get to know the characters, the more you're kind of analyzing their behaviors and their personalities. And, you know, we like to think we're therapists, even though we're not. So now we're like trying to diagnose them. So all that to say, we're going to get into the nitty gritty, but also all the things we love as well.
Yes. And I will say, first off, just to give regular stats, as we always do, on Rotten Tomatoes, it comes in at 86% across the board.
Okay.
So it's a loved show. I did see that it originally aired at 8 o'clock on Thursdays on the WB, which was 2000 to 2007. So what was it up against?
Friends.
It was up against Friends.
And Seinfeld wasn't still on at that time? Okay.
And that would have been later on in the evening anyway. But so it was 7 seasons, and then the reboot was, years later, 2016. So we're going to focus on the television show. And like Elena said, we started off that first time we watched season 1 or the whole thing all the way through series. Because we had it on DVD from Aunt Lynn and from our friend Kim, and we watched it all the way through. We loved Lorelai and Rory the first time.
Yeah, obsessed.
We were like, they're amazing.
Can do no wrong.
Right. And we're curious. Did you guys feel the same way? Because the more we watched, the more we were like, maybe she shouldn't have said that to Emily. Or, okay, so it's got an all-star cast. If you guys have never seen it before, then you may not enjoy this from the standpoint of the trivia and everything, you probably want to go and watch it. It is so worth it.
Yeah. And thankfully with the way it's set up, it's like you don't need to go and watch the whole show.
No.
Go watch season 1. It'll take you a week or 2 and then come back and do the trivia with us.
Yeah. It is a really beautifully done show. It's set in this absolutely gorgeous, quaint town of
Stars Hollow.
Stars Hollow.
It's the perfect back to school autumn vibe
It really
show.
is.
Like now is the time. If you haven't seen it, start watching it now because it'll just prep you for fall.
It will. October is when it started airing. It was October 5th, 2000 that it started airing. And it is just cozy, quaint. Check out our TikTok with the leaves changing is the opener. And Amy Sherman Palladino that wrote and created this series also does The Marvelous Miss Maisel. So if you're into that and you haven't seen Gilmore Girls, this is your series. You'll love it. Mm-hmm. She actually had gone into the WB to what do you call it when you're going to say that you want to do a show?
To pitch the show?
Thank you. She was pitching a different show and the WB was like, And she said, well, I also had this idea about this mother-daughter. And they said, that's the one we want. So she wasn't really even fully prepared with the full idea of what Gilmore Girls was going to be. But she had gone on vacation to a place in Connecticut. It was Washington Depot, Connecticut. And she had gone on vacation there and thought, if I could make a television show that made people feel like I feel when I'm here, they would love that show. And that's how Stars Hollow came to be. And she wanted one that was mainly female centered. As a matter of fact, Elena, Luke was meant to be a woman.
I heard that on Gilmore to Say, which if you guys want more like Gilmore lore,
so cute.
You need to listen to Gilmore to Say. But yes, I heard that.
Mm-hmm. And another side note that I thought was interesting, the set for Stars Hollow was also used in Pretty Little Liars.
Yes, and it's in other things too. I can't remember now. My mind is blanking, but it's like a universal set for like a lot of different shows.
So you've got Lauren Graham plays Lorelai, Alexis Bledel plays Rory, and she had never acted in anything before. As a matter of fact, y'all probably already know that are fanatics that in the first few episodes, Lorelai and Rory are linked arms a lot because Lauren Graham had to show Alexis how to stand on her mark, hit her mark. Yeah. That's right. Then Suki.
We love her.
You know, I can't stand it. I love her so much, Melissa McCarthy. And then Luke was Scott Gordon Patterson, which apparently he was a pro baseball player. Did you know that, baby?
I didn't, but I can totally see it.
And then Lane, Kiko Agena.
Which she was like 30 when the show started.
I know. Alexis was 19. And then Emily Kelly Bishop and Richard Edward Herman. So both of those were like, you know, just so well thought of and had these amazing careers. And Amy Sherman Palladino didn't think there was any way they'd say yes. And they said yes. They were like, I'm in. I want to do this. And it just has amazing supporting cast. There's a lot of people that you'll go, oh my gosh, throughout the series. And Dean, Rory's first love interest, that was a breakthrough role for him.
Yeah, and he goes on to be on Supernatural. Mm-hmm. And I think he's in some other things too.
Yeah, spinoffs came from this, from spinoff actors like Tristan, this guy that Rory meets from her private school, ends up being on.
He's Chad Michael Murray, so he's on One Tree Hill. He was in Cinderella Story, Freaky
Dawson's
Friday.
Creek?
No, One Tree Hill.
One Tree
Just
Hill.
One Tree Hill.
Anyway, so that's kind of the background of it. It's a mother-daughter series. Lorelai, the main character, has her daughter out of wedlock at the age of 16 or 15.
16 going on 17.
Okay. And you want to sing from Sound of Music?
Let's sing the song.
It's an interesting concept because the very opening scene, this kid young man hits on Lorelai at Luke's diner. Hello. We have a sign hanging up in the background. Then we have Luke's diner shirts on. Hits on Lorelai, and Lorelai kind of shoots him down. And then Rory comes in and she's sitting alone and he hits on her. And then Lorelai comes over and is like, oh, you're on repeat. And he's like, oh, is that your sister? And she's like, no, it's my daughter. And that's how the audience is introduced to the fact that the premise of the show is a mother-daughter relationship where their age difference is only 16 years. Mm-hmm. And what a cool relationship that is, and what that means as it moves forward. So it gets you right away, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. That hooks you right in. That was such a clever way to kind of introduce us to the dynamic
of the characters. Yeah. That's right. All right. So we're going to jump right on into the pilot. Is that cool, Lou? Mm-hmm. All right. Rory has been accepted to a private school. And it's, what is it, Lou? You tell us.
Chilton Academy? What is it?
Yes.
Just Chilton or?
Yes. And so she's been wanting to go there because she wants to go where for college?
Harvard. I almost said Yale, but she wants to go to Harvard.
She's totally just obsessed with it. She's incredibly bright. Her mother has poured all of her energy into raising her daughter to be an independent, self-sufficient young woman. And this is like their dream, is for her to go to Harvard. Mm-hmm. So, but what does she end up against? What does Lorelai find out?
The tuition for Chilton is just out. It's through the roof. And she is a manager at a small boutique inn. And she's done really well for herself. She started as a maid there. You know, she came in the pouring rain, knocking on the inn's door, just asking for a job when Rory was a baby. And so Mia, the inn owner, kind of takes her in. And then from there, Lorelai works her way up from a maid to the general manager of the entire inn. And so she does well for herself, but not to the point where she can send her daughter to this private school that's supposed to kind of be like, if you go there, you're gonna get into all the Ivies. So.
Right. And so they very much want her to go there, but the cost is prohibited. So, Lou, I'm going to ask you one of those niche questions that you may or may not know. You're not allowed to get frustrated. You have to just be like, I don't know.
Okay.
So we meet Michelle, who is the concierge at the inn that Lorelai works at, when Rory comes in for the first scene, and she's looking for what behind the counter?
Her French book.
And yes, you're right. And what does she ask for?
Lip gloss? Or she asked Michelle to go to help her study or
That's
write her
exactly
paper.
Right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Go over her paper. That's exactly right.
Proof it.
And then Lorelai has to go to who to ask for the money?
Emily and Richard, her parents.
So she doesn't want to do this. She doesn't want to go to her parents and say, I need money. But what she does instead is says it's for Rory, and it's so she can go to Chilton. And Richard and Emily light up because they know what this means, that if she goes to Chilton, it's closer for her to get into an Ivy League school. So they say yes. But Emily, Lorelai's mom, Rory's grandmother, says, you can have the money, but you got to come to
Friday night dinners.
And
the money is a loan. So Lorelai's like, she doesn't want to take a handout at all. She has a rough relationship with her parents. Mm-hmm. I mean, she ran away from home with a 1-year-old at 17. So she's very much like, I want these boundaries. This is a loan. I will pay you back. And so the one request is, okay, well, you have to come to our house for dinner every Friday night.
Mm-hmm. So they do. But Rory at the time doesn't know that that's the deal. She knows that that Lorelai's borrowed the money, or has the money for Chilton, but she doesn't know how she got it. So they're at their first Friday night dinner when she overhears an argument between Emily and Lorelai and realizes that this is what her mom has done. She's promised to be back in their lives if she can have the money to send Rory to Chilton. And so that's kind of the whole premise of the first thing. But then Rory decides, oh, maybe I don't want to go. Why?
Because she meets a cute boy.
Hello. She meets a boy. Who's she meet, Lou?
Dean.
Are you Teen Dean?
I don't know anyone who is Teen Dean. Here's the thing, though. In high school, I was like in love. Like I was like, he is perfect. I want a Dean. As an adult, and I understand he's supposed to be a teenager, but as an adult,
no.
He is whiny. He is clingy. And no, I'm not Team Dean.
Okay, good enough. But she goes to Lorelai and says, why did you make this decision? I don't think I want to go. And Lorelai's like, something's up. And then she realizes it's about a boy. And she, of course, because she was a teenage mother, she doesn't want her to be making her decisions based on a boy. So she says, we've always lived in a democracy, but this time I'm telling you, you have no choice. You're going. So anyway, she does end up going. We're going to talk about that's episode 2. I have one last trivia question for you, Elena, because who is Rory's best friend's name is Lane. And in the first episode, when we meet Lane, Lane has to go on a blind date. And where does she have to go?
The carnival? The hayride?
Yes, look at you. She has to go on a hayride. Yes, she does. So that's pretty much how episode 1 wraps up, with us realizing that they're going to be in Lorelai's parents' lives. They have a very bougie home in Hartford.
Which is closer to Chilton than Stars Hollow. So they kind of are like, oh, we've got Rory. You know, if it snows one day, like, oh, she can just stay with us. Like, they just kind of... Rory is like the rope, and they're playing tug of war.
Yes, and they're doing it very effectively.
Yeah.
The performances are amazing. It makes it very easy to watch because the acting is on point, even from Alexis, with this being her first role. Like Amy Sherman Palladino she said, as soon as I saw her audition, I thought, well, I don't care that she doesn't have acting career. That's what made her attractive, was because she was shy. Okay, episode 2 takes us into Rory's first day at Chilton, which does not go well.
Right.
What are some challenges she has, Elena?
Well, there's Paris, Madeline, and Louise, who are, already getting their back up towards her, spying on her, trying to figure out what's her deal. There's Chad Michael Murray, who is Tristan, that decides he's going to start calling her Mary because Virgin Mary.
And she is not enjoying life this day. That's right. So I have some, at the same time that this is going on, Emily is trying to assert herself more into the situation. So she's like, I want to buy her clothes that, with the logo on it. And she should have the Chilton socks. And I read the newsletter as soon as it comes out. Like, she's just all about being
helicopter grandma.
Helicopter grandma. And at the same time, we're introduced to a reoccurring character in this episode. That would be Kurt. Only he's not Kurt in the first episode that we see him in. And I want to know, what is he doing in that episode? And what is his name?
Oh my gosh, I know this. What is he doing? He's working for some... He comes to the inn to do...
He comes to the house. Babette calls Lorelai and says, there's strangers outside your house.
I don't know. I know he eventually, when they have termites, he does the inspection, but that's way down the road. He has a different name. I don't remember it, and I don't remember what he's doing.
Okay, so maybe you do. That's why this is one of those harder questions for those of you who are obsessed. His name is Mick, and he's there to install the DSL for the house that Emily has ordered. She wants the faster internet for the girls now that Rory's in Chilton, and so she has him come over there, and he's looking for the house key in the hidden frog, but it's really a turtle. And Babette's their next door neighbor, has called Lorelai and said, you need to get over here. There's strangers walking around your house. And that's how Lorelai finds out that Emily has now inserted herself into their home and is trying to rearrange everything. And so Lorelai goes to the hairdresser, finds her mom there, and says, there will be nothing except for the Friday night dinners that we promised you. So it's kind of a line in the sand moment with the two of them. They're always having those. And that's basically the wrap up of episode 2. Episode 3, Kill Me Now, is what it's called, is when there is a major wedding at the end. There's twins marrying twins.
I love that.
It's a great episode. And the mother of the brides is having a nervous breakdown, and she goes up to her room, and Lorelai says she's going to send up a masseuse. Do you happen to remember this?
I remember hers like, I'm going to send up champagne and a hot masseuse guy.
Do you remember who she says the masseuse looks like?
George Clooney, maybe?
So close. It's the dad from Spy Kids, Antonio Banderas. Oh, I thought that was pretty funny.
Dad from Spy Kids.
My generation girls will know who Antonio Banderas is.
I know who he is outside of that.
And then the other one I had written down for that one is that during the wedding, the brides are fighting, and we've been introduced to Suki, Melissa McCarthy, who's the lead chef at the inn. And she has this relationshipy, quirky, flirty thing going on with her produce guy, Jackson.
Did you know she was, Amy Sherman Palladino wanted her to be a lesbian?
I did not.
But the network turned it down. They're like, no, it's too controversial.
Oh, I mean, back in 2000.
But yeah. So in the revival, when we finally are confirmed that Michelle is gay and has a partner, it's like, finally.
What took us so long? Yeah, exactly. The dessert for that wedding was supposed to be strawberry shortcake, but Jackson didn't have strawberries. Do you remember what Suki had to use instead?
Like rhubarb?
That is so funny because that's a different episode. That's so funny. It was blueberry shortcake, and the only reason why I remembered that is because Lorelai takes it over to Emily's house later, and Emily, of course, has a snarky remark about the fact that it's blueberries. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen it, it said that a typical hour-long television show had a script that was 45 to 50 pages. Gilmore Girls was 75 to 80 pages because they talk so quickly.
Fast, yeah.
Their tagline was "Life short, talk fast." And they had an actual vocal coach, dialogue coach, that came in to try and help them keep up with the dialogue because they weren't allowed to even change a word. And so they said it was really easy for Lauren Graham, that she did it really well, that Alexis did it well. But Lauren Graham and Scott Patterson, the guy that played Luke, had to quit smoking because they couldn't keep up the pace.
Oh my gosh.
It's so interesting. One sheet of dialogue is worth a minute of taping. And in Gilmore Girls' case, it was only 25 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Taping.
Yeah.
There's no way I could keep up. But it is
it's just so quick. Even when they're like interacting with the town or like at the town meeting, it's just like quip, 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 like so fast.
And that's another reason they said that people like to watch it over and over and over again, is because there's always something new that you missed.
Yeah.
Episode 5, Cinnamon's Wake. Oh, no, wait. Episode 4, The Deer Hunter. That's when Rory's on her way to school. She gets hit by
a deer.
And what exam is she late for?
History.
With who? Who's her professor?
Isn't Medina the professor?
Yep, Max Medina is a professor.
He is supposed to be her English teacher.
He is. It was English.
Oh, okay.
But
then why did you tell me I was right?
Because I felt bad.
Don't do that.
I'm sorry. It was an exam on Shakespeare, and they'd stayed up the night before, and then Lorelai gets in a huge fight with the headmaster, and she calls him. Do you know what she calls him? The bad name that she calls him?
Doesn't she call him like a douche?
El Duce.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Episode 5 is Cinnamon's Wake. They're in hot water now because they're not going to the funeral of a relative, but they end up staying home and taking care of Babette, the next door neighbor, when her cat dies.
I love Babette so much.
Babette is so lovely. That Sally Struthers plays Babette. She's lovely. And that is the episode where Rory is dipping her toe into seeing if Dean likes her. So she goes into the grocery store to just see him because he works as a bag boy. Do you remember anything that she bought 2 items when she was in the grocery store?
This isn't when they kiss.
No.
Because I was like, cornstarch, but she stole.
She stole. Yeah. Good for you.
But, and I keep wanting to say bug spray, but that's not
it.
It's
so close.
Because where they kiss is the aisle with the bug spray. And
Lane
goes, that's a good aisle.
How do you know that? Okay, you're right.
I don't remember what she bought, though.
Okay, she got a head of lettuce.
Okay.
And a mouse trap. And she didn't have enough money for both. So she ended up just getting the head of lettuce. Now we roll into Rory's birthday.
This is my favorite episode. Maybe not, I don't know of the whole show, but definitely of season 1 is her birthday party.
Why?
I love it. I love that I feel like we really get to see like the town in this episode and how much they love Rory. I feel like it really just kind of it does a lot of world building, and it just gets us to understand the relationship a lot better. And I just think her birthday party is so fun.
That is really awesome. Yeah, so Emily had a formal birthday party for Rory without her permission, and that goes really sideways. And Rory, who is absolutely darling and sweet up until this point, gets into a fight with her grandmother. But one of my favorite scenes of all time is in this one too, and it's when Lorelai gets into bed with Rory at the time where she was born. Do you happen to remember what that was?
like 3 something.
You're so close.
I don't remember.
It's 4:03 for those crazy people out there who actually knew that. But Lorelai gets in the bed with her daughter and recounts the story of her birth. And I thought, I can connect with that.
I have a trivia question for you.
Ooh.
It's not this. Well, it relates to this. So later on when they're not talking and it's Rory's birthday and she has that funky dream where it's the same scene you're talking about.
Yes.
But it's not Lorelai telling the story back to her.
It's the journalist she wants to be.
It's Madeleine Albright.
Oh my Lord. I need, yes. I was like, it's a politician or it's a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's true. It's true. So, I want to know, what did Emily end up buying for Rory for her birthday?
The bracelet with the little beads that she said you could buy at a car wash.
Yes. And she didn't want to buy it because it was cheap and she ended up loving it. Now, what did Dean give her?
The bracelet that he made, it's like a leather bracelet with a little medallion that he made himself, which in high school, again, I was like, that is the most romantic thing in the world. I love him so much.
Do you think he's handsome?
Okay, this is going to sound bad. I think he's handsome in like season 1 and stuff. The season where him and Rory get together for the second time, which I won't give any detail about now, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I do know what you mean.
He looks not good. He
I
looks
agree.
so not good. But the first couple seasons, he looks super handsome. I think he's super handsome.
And as a young girl, I could see where that would be like, oh, he's dreamy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And they still have not really decided to date yet, or they're dating, but nothing has happened.
Yeah, they haven't like DTR'd.
No, because that's what happens in episode 7, which is called Kiss and Tell. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And Lorelai finds out through the woodwork, which is Lane's mom, who I love Mrs. Kim.
I love the way their relationship develops throughout the show.
You do?
Mrs. Kim and Lane.
And Lane,
yeah.
you do?
Think about Lane's wedding when she's like, I'm going to go to bed with ear plugs. So I won't know what's happening.
I like it when later on when the band.
Yes.
With the band. Yeah, she becomes pretty cool.
Yeah.
But Mrs. Kim absolutely accidentally lets it slip, or really tells Lorelai on purpose, that Rory's had her first kiss in the aisle with the ant spray. You're absolutely right. And she runs off accidentally shoplifting cornstarch. You're absolutely right. So what is Dean holding behind his back when he kisses her?
Pop, or as she calls it, soda, but he calls it pop.
Mm-hmm. And by the end of the episode, Lorelai's accidentally asked Dean over without Rory's permission. And what movie do they watch?
Willy Wonka.
I'm so proud of you. Now, here's a bonus question for those people who are really fanatics. When Dean realizes that they've left something behind at the grocery store, what was it?
Red Vines.
I can't believe you. That is absolutely right. Ha! Okay. Rolling right along to Love and War and Snow. I do not care for this episode, and I'll tell you why.
Really?
I knew from the very beginning that we should not be with Max Medina.
I'm not trying to slam on Max Medina, but he is so boring, and I just never saw them together. I didn't really feel their chemistry.
None.
Yeah, no.
It kind of grossed me out a little bit.
He gives me the ick.
He gives me the ick. And it's not
and
him.
He's handsome.
Yeah, he is. They're just not equally matched.
Yeah.
And you can see it from the get-go. And so it's cringeworthy. In my opinion, it was cringeworthy because you're going, you don't belong together. You're wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it drove me crazy. And so in this episode, when he gets stranded overnight in Stars Hollow, and at the same time, Rory's stranded over at her grandparents' house, what does she make for her grandparents for dinner that night?
Frozen pizza.
Yes, she does.
Also, Max Medina, I don't know if we clarified, and I'm sure everyone already knows, but he's Rory's teacher that Lorelai has been flirting with, but she's nervous to date him because it's Rory's teacher.
She's really not supposed to be seeing him. Anyway, that same evening, Lane ends up interrupting their little makeout session because she's spending the night, unbeknownst to Lorelai, in Rory's bedroom because why, Elena?
She touches the boy's hair.
Yes, she's got the hots for a kid in band. She accidentally, on purpose, runs her fingers through his hair without his permission in front of everyone. It's incredibly embarrassing. I feel terrible for her.
Yeah.
All right, episode 9, Rory's dance. I thought this was far-fetched. I don't think there's any way in the world Rory would have wanted to have gone. And I think Dean would have pushed back and said no. And I don't think they would have gone.
I don't think it's far-fetched.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I feel like that was kind of me in high school of like, because at first Rory's like, I'm not going to go. It's so stupid and embarrassing. And Lorelai's like, it's okay if you like want to do that. It's okay. Like, I feel like not everybody, but a lot of people deep down are like, I kind of want to go. I kind of want to have a fairy tale moment, but that's embarrassing. So I'm just going to act like I'm too cool for it.
Okay. Now,
the pushback from Dean, maybe I could see that, especially with her coming out ball that they go to down the road. But I can see your point.
Yeah. So anyway, Lorelai makes her dress, and while she's making the dress, she pulls her back out. She ends up on the couch, and Emily, who has insisted on coming over to take pictures of this event, ends up staying to take care of Lorelai, much to her disdain. And Elena, do you have any recollection of what Emily makes her to eat?
Mashed banana on toast.
She's right. She's absolutely right. Good job, friend. And who is Paris's date at the dance?
Her cousin.
It's so poor Paris.
But she outs herself.
She does out herself. Rory wasn't going to say anything, and Paris just makes a fool out of herself. Gosh, I feel bad for her. By the end of the episode, Rory and Dean take a little detour through town on their way back home, and they fall asleep. Where?
At Miss Patty's on the yoga mats.
Yes, they do. And they don't wake up until 5:30 in the morning, a little too late, because now Emily and Lorelai have realized that she's late. So this leads to the first real argument that we see between Rory and Lorelai, which rolls us into the next episode, which is called Forgiveness and Stuff. And this episode, it becomes very angst-filled because Richard has a heart attack.
Oh, so this is where it's Christmas time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Lorelai is not invited to the Christmas party because they're in an argument. Emily and Lorelai are in an argument because of harsh words that were said when Rory turned up missing in the episode before. What is Lorelai missing out on at the Christmas party?
The apple tarts that she loves, because they have a Christmas Eve. Her parents have a Christmas Eve party every year. And so this is the one year that she's kind of not invited. And every year there's the apple tarts.
And that's the thing that she cares about. Okay, here's the harder one. When Lorelai finds out that her dad's in the hospital, she's at Luke's diner getting dinner that evening. And she's explaining to Luke that she's a little bit sad because she's not going to be at the Christmas party. And what does Luke make for her to try and cheer her up?
A Santa burger.
She's right.
With ketchup and mayo as the hat.
You're so right. You're so right, Elena. Anyway, Richard ends up being okay. For those of you who've not seen it, you need to be watching it. You shouldn't be watching this podcast.
I'm sure majority have definitely seen it.
Okay, but maybe we're sparking some memories there. Episode 11, Paris is burning. Paris is going to get ticked off in this one because Tristan, who's still been chasing after Rory, has Chad Michael Murray. Rory has directed him in the direction of, why don't you ask Paris out? She's got a crush on you. And he does it merely to placate Rory, not really because he wants to go out with Paris. But Paris runs over to Rory's house and is like, oh my gosh, Tristan asked me out on a date. What does Paris borrow from Rory for the date?
She borrows an outfit, but it's Lorelai's clothes. It's not Rory's clothes.
Do you remember what it is?
A skirt and a pink top.
It's a black mini skirt and a pink top.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the episode, she found out that Rory was the one that instigated this. She gets furious, and Rory has to tell her mom she's never getting the outfit back.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the wrong episode.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry.
Which episode is that?
Paris is burning is when her parents are getting divorced, and it's parent-teacher.
And her mom's like, you haven't been using the acne cream. I got you.
Everyone.
It's so sad.
That was terrible.
And because Rory and Lorelai are still making up, and so Lorelai's like, I could be treating you like that. Aren't you glad that I'm a nice mommy? And she's like, yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. And so the parents are supposed to go and audit all the classes, and Lorelai's going to break up with Max.
Mm-hmm.
What book does she give back to Max?
Oh my gosh. I know it, but I don't remember it.
It's Proust, Swan's Way.
I would not have remembered that.
And he's like, stop trying to give me back the book. I don't want the book back. Are you breaking up with me? And she says she's breaking up with him, but then he kisses her and Paris sees it and spreads it all over the school, right?
Yep.
So by episode 12, we're to the double date. Now Jackson and Suki are going out on their first date. Rune is Jackson's cousin. He's coming along. He's going to be Lorelai's date. And what does he complain about? What's the first thing he says?
That she's too tall.
She's too tall. That's exactly right. What does he want to do instead of the date?
Go bowling.
Absolutely. And finally, what do Luke and Lorelai do to pass the time?
Play cards.
You're
I don't know what game
right.
it is, though.
They play poker. All right. By episode 13, they're going to a concert. Elena, what concert are they going to?
The Bangles.
They're going to the Bangles, and they're having a yard sale in their house. What is the yard sale benefiting?
I believe it is to repair the old bridge.
That is exactly right. Do you have any? Here's a hard one.
Okay.
What does Miss Patty donate?
Some drums that she used to pop out of when she was a little cha-cha dancer.
She's right. And what does Luke get mad that Lorelai has?
Rachel's sweatshirt.
You're exactly right. We're just going to run right through it. Episode 14, the Donna Reed show.
That damn Donna Reed.
Dean and Rory. They are going to have a little romantic night at Maury and Babette's. Why do they have to stay at Maury and Babette's?
Because they got a new kitten, Peaches.
You're so close. Come on, girl. You can do it.
Apricot.
Yes.
Apricot.
Meanwhile, who's over at Lorelai's?
Well, Luke is helping her find Stella, the chick that goes missing. That's Rory's science project.
You're exactly right.
I love that episode.
I do love that episode because they talk about feminism and how the old-timey feminists, not anti-feminists, but television shows came across as anti-feminist.
Yeah, misogynistic.
What did that really mean? And Dean has an opinion about that one. I think the costuming is really pretty in that one.
And they find out that Donna Reed was a producer on her show. She was actually leading the way from a feminism standpoint.
Yeah, she was. The next episode is Christopher Returns. How do you feel about this episode, please?
I have mixed feelings about this episode.
Christopher's Rory's dad.
Yeah. That we haven't met him yet. He rides in on a motorcycle. He rides in and he looks at Lorelai and he's like, take your top off. And we're like, what's happening? And it's her baby daddy. It's Christopher.
And so he comes in and what does he want to buy for Lorelai at the bookstore, darling?
The Encyclopedia Britannica or something like that.
So close. It's the Oxford Dictionary.
Okay.
And what happens?
His card gets declined.
He's been making a big deal about the fact that his business is taking off, and we find out that it's really not true. And we don't know that yet when Emily and Richard invite his parents over for dinner and them. So all 6 of them and Rory are there for dinner. It's the first time they've been together since they found out the kids were pregnant. So Stroh and I forget the lady's name.
Francine and Stroh.
I've never met Rory as an adult, as a teenager
at all.
All hell breaks loose. Do you remember what Lorelai says that causes the argument?
I hate Bush.
I hate George Bush. And it went and so I gotta ask you, how do you feel about her doing that?
Here's the thing we talk about with Lorelai that we've realized recently. You are emotionally the age that the trauma happens to you. So sometimes you can really tell that Lorelai is still on the inside a 16-year-old. And so that I thought that was a very 16-year-old moment. She said she was trying to just change the subject, but that was not the way at all. And there's a lot of moments throughout the show where she's trying to handle things with her parents and that 16-year-old comes out and you're like, really? You're 32, but okay.
It's so true.
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you said that about the trauma thing.
I took it from you.
It is true.
Yeah.
If you don't get therapy, your brain is stuck where your trauma is. And she does act like a teenager a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a trivia question.
Oh.
What else is Strobe from that we love?
Father of the Bride.
Yes. He's Brian's dad.
He's Brian's dad. Episode 16, Star-Crossed Lovers and Other Strangers. Which anniversary is this for Dean and Rory?
3 months.
3 months is exactly right. And what does Rory try and get for her mom to take home after the dinner?
A meatball.
A meatball. Why?
Lady and the Tramp. Because, and she said it's a mother-daughter thing. But really, it's an inside joke about Lady and the Tramp.
In that same episode, Emily tries to set Lorelai up with a guy. And do you remember what his job was?
No.
He pinpoints people actual day of death for insurance companies. He's an actuarial.
Could have done that.
And what does Richard do unexpectedly at the end of that episode?
Lorelai, so her parents have set her up like at Friday night dinner. There's a guy there for her to meet, and she is like...
Only Emily did it. Richard didn't know, and he was mad.
So Lorelai goes up to her old bedroom, starts to sneak out her old window, and Richard finds her. And she goes, "Hi, Daddy." And he lets her go. He goes, "Emily, she's not in here." Mm-hmm. And I love thinking on later on Gilmore to say, they're like, she should have recounted that story in the revival at his service. That would have been a good story to.
Yeah, because that was a really sweet moment.
Yeah.
Although the fact that she was running away again was such a 16. It was an embarrassing moment for me as an adult woman. I'm like,
yeah, you're this poor man.
Just say you have a headache and walk away.
Yeah. But to just disappear, like now he knows you've just ditched him. Like
that was a teenage move. In that episode, Rory and Dean break up. So when we start episode 16, it's called The Breakup Part 2. And what is number one on Rory's to-do list at 6 o'clock in the morning when she wakes up, Lorelai, because she doesn't know what to do with herself now that she's broken up?
I know there's a few things. They need a garden hose.
That's it.
It's the garden hose?
That's exactly right.
A butter dish is one of them.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite lines is Kurt is in the diner. Everybody's in the diner at 6 a.m. apparently on a Saturday. And they've all found out that Rory and Dean have broken up. And Kurt is talking to Rory and is saying, "You know what? I never trusted him." Do you remember why? What Kurt said, why he knew that he wasn't trustworthy?
I know it's ridiculous, but I don't remember exactly.
His floppy hair. He had floppy hair. I didn't trust him because he had floppy hair. Later on in that episode, Rory goes to whose party?
Madeline and Louise's.
Mm-hmm. And Tristan is sad at that same party. Why?
Because Summer broke up with him, which also I just learned. Summer is the girl in the first episode at Stars Hollow High that's like, she's doing the assignment. You know that scene where they're like passing the nail polish? It's the same actress.
No, it is not.
Yeah. But then later on,
I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that now.
A Chilton student.
We are getting close to the end, friend. Episode 18, the third Lorelai. I have an interesting quote for you.
Okay.
Back in like episode 2 or 3, they are at a family dinner. Do you know this? And Richard is like, "My mother was a good woman. She was And so they made it seem like she was dead. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, I'm going to do some research to figure out how they decided to walk that back or why they decided to walk it back.
There's a lot of, I have a lot of confusion with Gran.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't all add up.
No. So Gran is played by who?
I don't know.
Or do you know what else she was in?
No.
She was the mom from Happy Days. She's very famous.
Never even seen Happy Days.
Okay. And what sugary treat does Rory bring to the study group that Saturday morning? Because Paris makes them all study at 9 o'clock in the morning. This is the one where she sets Tristan up with.
Yes. Isn't it coffee and donuts?
It is, but what are the donuts in shape of?
I don't remember.
I just thought
pencils.
It was so weird.
I don't know.
Clowns. It was clowns. This is the one where she borrows the mini skirt and the blouse. And at the same time, we find out that Gran wants to leave Rory a chunk of money. Do you remember how much money it was?
Is it like, it's either like $500,000 or I think it's $250,000.
It is. It's $250,000. And then Gran decides that the girls are too immature to handle it. So she doesn't get the money. That's sad.
Yeah.
Episode 19, Emily in Wonderland, is one of my favorites. Emily comes to Stars Hollow. What do you think of this one?
She reminds me so much of my grandma Star. Seeing her in the chunky tennis shoes with the suit for some reason really makes me think of Grandma Star.
That's one of your trivia questions. Who does Lorelai say she looks like when she sees her in the tennis shoes and the suit?
Oh, Working Girl.
I'm so proud of you. That's exactly right.
Well, in my head, because Emily says, I look like a Clydesdale. And so I was thinking Clydesdale.
Yeah, but you're right. She does say that too. Yeah, she reminds me of grandma too. So
yeah.
I think maybe that's why I like it.
Yeah, me too.
I like
they go antiquing. Yeah.
I like her interchange or her exchange with Mrs. Kim.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Their energy together.
Together is so good, right?
Yeah.
And where Emily gets upset at the end of the tour of Stars Hollow because Rory shows her where they lived when Rory was a baby after they left the house. Where was it?
The old potting shed.
At the inn, at the
inn.
Independence Inn. That's right. Lou, you're on a roll.
Thank you.
2 more episodes. Episode 20, P.S. I Love You. By up to this point, Rory has not shared with her mom why she and Dean broke up, which really makes me mad because it painted Dean out to be the one that broke up with her. Mm-hmm. Technically, that may be true, but it's because he said, I love you. And she said, what back?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, yeah.
And so he was like, well, if you don't love me, then what are we doing here? Well, they're in another argument, Rory and Lorelai. So Rory goes to stay at Grandma's house because Grandma has now redecorated a room for her. What is Rory's favorite flowers?
Sunflowers.
Very nice. Very nice. At the same episode, Luke has his girlfriend Rachel back in town. They've been seeing each other for a while now, and it's Rachel's birthday. What did Luke buy her?
Oven mitts from the cat club or
so
whatever.
Proud of you. That's exactly right. What does Lorelai buy for Luke for Rachel?
A new camera bag and something else. A new camera bag and and a book or something.
You're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. And we're up to the last one, episode 21, Love, Daisies, and Troubadours.
Yeah. How do you feel about this proposal?
I hate this episode with a passion.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want her with Max.
No, I don't think the proposal's romantic at all.
Let me just tell you, something else that really bothers me is that she goes to Max's house in the episode before only when she finds out that Rachel is going to stay in town with Luke. Mm-hmm. That to me is so sick and twisted. I'm like, no, you don't go get back together with Max because now Luke's unavailable. That's not why you do that.
Yeah. Well, I have a question, and this is more of like a broad, but do we think, because the more we watch it, the more we're like, now that was messed up. And what, she acts 16 a lot and, all these different flaws that we notice. But don't you think part of it is kind of seeing the whole, all the aspects of that character of like, yeah, they make mistakes. They do dumb things because they're supposed to be a human, What are your thoughts on that? Like how much of it is Lorelai's just a human with a lot of different aspects to her, and how much of it is she's just toxic because she has good things
because
to her.
Suki makes that comment that then she comes back and is so hateful to her about like, you're giving me dating advice. When's the last time you've been on a date? Because Suki says, oh, what are we at 2 months now? Mm-hmm. So this is a pattern. This is Lorelai's pattern that I get up to a point. And my point about that is that what about the other person? Look, she's going to wreck Max. Mm-hmm. And that she would have been better off staying away from him. It was selfish. It was self-centered.
It was.
Here's your trivia question for that episode. What does Luke leave at Lorelai's house that he comes back to pick up? Because he's going to declare his likingness of her because Rachel says it's clear that you are more than friends. You need to go and tell her. Mm-hmm. And so he goes to tell her under the guise of picking something up. What was it?
His toolbox, which Lorelai and Rory have named Hank.
I don't remember.
I think. Yeah.
Okay. And Max is already there, and Max and Luke kind of get into a little pissing match. Yeah. Over who spends more time with Lorelai and who has a closer relationship. But that ends up, the season ends with what, Lou? What happens at the end of that episode?
So when he's in the pissing match with Luke, out of, claiming what's his, Max is like, we need to get married. And Lorelai's like, this is not how it goes. There should be 1,000 yellow daisies. She should be on a white horse. I don't know. It should be romantic. The end of the episode, she goes into work at the inn, and Michelle's like, we didn't order these, to Kirk, who's delivering the flowers. And
his 8th job on the show.
She walks in, and there's it's supposed to be a million yellow daisies. It's like so many daisies. And so she calls him and he basically proposes over the phone, which I don't like that it's over the phone. Like, why can't he just be there and propose?
And he doesn't have a ring, and it's not romantic. And
they don't do like a "Will you marry me?" Yes, it's he gives her a speech, and then he's like, just think about it. And so that's how the series wraps up. We don't know.
Season. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not the series, the season.
Season 1 is now over.
Right. So we don't know. She's been proposed to. Will she say yes? Will she say no? Oh, and Dean and Rory get back together. So that's where we get the scene.
Right at the end.
That's where we get the scene of Lorelai and Rory running up to each other and like, I have news. Me first.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it. What else would you like to share about season 1?
I actually think season 1 and season 2 are my favorite seasons.
Are they?
Yeah. And I don't want to go too far into this. I know we're wrapping up on our time, but in season 1 and the first few seasons, Rory is my favorite Rory. Like, yes,
I would agree.
I would say senior year, maybe college on, I'm like, who are you? This is not Rory. Yeah, this person has changed. But the first, especially season 1, Rory is, I think, so much more laid back and like more like Lorelai. Whereas like as the season goes on, she gets like mousier. Like I feel like she has this baby voice that gets stronger and stronger every season. And it's just not my favorite. So that's why I do prefer earlier season Rory.
That's interesting. Yeah. We're going to delve into that because I just had a couple of thoughts, but it needs to wait until later on or else I'm going to spoil some stuff.
Okay.
Elena, we need to tell people really quickly what we're doing next because it is a author. And so you're going to want to read the books or at least one of her books in advance. Tell us about it.
Guys, we are going to do Emily Henry.
I'm very excited about this.
Just a book-focused episode. We haven't done that yet. Mm-hmm. So we're excited. So remember, we're going to break up the Gilmore Girls. We'll have some more episodes in between just so we can make it more diverse. But we will catch back up on season 2 in a couple of episodes.
Yeah. So Emily Henry writes books that you would consider, actually one of them's called Beach Read. Mm-hmm. And you would consider those just like really candy. Yeah. Kind of books. Well, the first one's called People We Meet on Vacation. Mm-hmm. And then there's Beach Read. And then there's Book Lovers.
Yeah. I think Beach Read came before People We Meet on Vacation, but I'm not entirely sure.
I'm pretty sure People We Meet was first.
Because in People We Meet on Vacation, he's reading one of Gus's books.
Oh,
they're
interesting.
They're supposed to kind of all be the same universe.
So check it out. Get it from. We're big thrift book proponents, so look into that. This week's episode was sponsored by Heather
Noel Kate,
who allowed us to use her microphone. As always, our absolutely amazing Greggles is behind the camera and the microphones, and he deals with a lot of crud from us, and we love him and we thank him.
Sponsored
and we think he's amazing
by Heather, Kate, and
Gregory Knott. Sorry about August.
Oh yeah, thanks for our hiatus and your patience with us. We love you.
Love you. Bye.
Okay, ready? Clap.
Hey.
I'm sorry, honey. Was that super loud? I'm so sorry, baby. We just can't. We can't get a break.
Oh my God. We're punchy.
Oh,
we're punchy.
A real interesting episode.
Oh no.
Girls' Night.